Hello, and welcome back to Hey Coach. It's been a long time, since February. A lot of things have changed. As you can see, I'm wearing a mask. You can see our guests are very socially distanced. We got a great show tonight. First of all, I have my good friend Danny Ninestine. How long have we been together, Danny?
The 70s.
70s. Going way back.
I was in college and you were over at Pace coaching.
And I had hair. And you know, my good golfing partner. We play on Sundays and everything with my boys. It's glad to have you. And Chris Sasha from Cleveland Clinic. And Chris has put together a wonderful partnership with St. Lucie County, providing medical assistants and trainers. We're going to talk about that. And most of all, we're going to talk about the reopening of high school sports. Very controversial, but we have to talk about this, and we're going to give some recommendations out to the students, to the coaches, and to the parents. Okay, first of all, Chris, a little bit about your background.
Sure. Just relocated here from Cleveland, Ohio, about a year ago.
Indian fan.
Indian fan, huge Indians fan.
Well,
Not so much a Browns fan, but definitely an Indians fan.
You had to throw the Browns in there.
Yeah, I had to throw them in there. I'll give them a plug.
Okay.
But been with the Cleveland Clinic for 25 years, and when Cleveland Clinic merged with Martin Health, had the opportunity to come down here and bring my experience and avoid the 6 months of winter that we have up in Cleveland and enjoy the sun down here in Florida.
And you're over at Tradition Hospital?
I am over at North Hospital, is where I'm positioned. I oversee all three hospitals and ambulatory locations in Martin County and St. Lucie County.
And from personal experience, I got to tell you, I had a great I didn't want to be there, but I had a great experience at Tradition Hospital. The way they took care of me at my surgery last year, and phenomenal people. And we're so glad you guys are here. Danny, challenge, huh, this year?
Challenge, but we're going to get through it. We're going to work. Chris and his gang have been fabulous. We started out with having physicals in the spring for some of our kids, and he brought in an army. He said, I'll bring in some nurses to help with eye charts and height and weight and things, and he meant it. And you know, we've started to form this partnership, and we haven't had a medical assistance at our contests in quite a long time.
You know, I know Danny knows this, but you know, my last year I retired 3 years ago. I really didn't care if we won or lost. I just didn't want anybody to get hurt because we didn't have trainers there. And we were scared. I mean, every day we'd call each other and say, hopefully nobody got hurt. And what you're doing is just phenomenal. You know, I know you're going to work out the details and everything, but just a general approach, what are you going to provide here?
Yeah, I think the important thing with sports, and you know, again, having been a long-time coach myself, coaching football with my children and baseball for over 16 years, both at the recreation and the travel level, it's important that we educate on prevention. We don't want to see kids get hurt. We know what happens. We know injuries occur. But it's important that we're educating the coaches, the players, as well as the families, the parents, on proper prevention and training, especially around concussions and things like that.
Now, how would you do that? Because I think that's the key word that you said is education. How are we going to educate?
Well, what we're planning and through our dialogues is, we're actually developing a very robust orthopedic department. We have Dr. Peter Evans who came down from Cleveland, Ohio. He's an upper extremity surgeon, been involved with sports teams, both on the professional level and the college level. A sports medicine physician coming from up north as well as a reconstruction surgeon. We also are working on bringing on a pediatric orthopedic physician. Again, kids are different. Some are grown full adults at the age of 13, and some are not. So we want to make sure that the children are developing it properly. So we want to make sure we have the right staff. We have a really strong rehabilitation program, and I think coupled with the athletic program, we're going to be able to address this. But we plan to have each season educational sessions for the players, faculty, and staff but also have similar sessions for parents so we can educate them on just proper hydration, proper nutrition, and again, all of that plays into being safe on the field and being able to continue your play even after your high school years.
That is so wonderful to hear, because I can't tell you, and I know Danny can back me up on this, how many times when we had a football team come to our county and said, "Where's your trainer?" And I kind of fumbled my words and say, we don't have one here. And what you're doing is just tremendous. And hopefully, Danny, maybe we could put together a whole class with what Chris is doing, and also putting about the COVID in there also, some of the preventions. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. He has, obviously when it changed to Cleveland Clinic, it has had a lot of prestige with it.
Yes.
So that was the first thing that attracted me. Second, they're taking over the Treasure Coast. And a lot of our parents don't have a physician, a family physician.
Why is that?
I think they move from other parts of the country and they come down, and that's one of the first things Chris and I talked about. He says, I've got family physicians. I happen to meet the two brothers. They're fabulous.
Yeah, they are.
They're two great guys. And if I had kids that need to go to a family physician, I'd send them there right away. So some of the people that I've met, they're outstanding. They have the credentials, like he just said. They're bringing in people that have years and years of experience, the highest level, professional, college, and that just, because when a kid gets hurt on a Friday night and he's hurt pretty good or pretty bad, however you want to look at it, we want to be able to send our kid to quality people, and the people that I've met with Chris's outfit, they're just quality people, and we have a lot of kids on the Treasure Coast who go on and play college and professional sports, and I really believe that he's going to get them back in rehab the right way, rather than mom or dad saying, "Oh yeah, he did his exercises for 3 or 4 days. Now we're going to send him to some professionals. They're going to make sure that they're rehabbing the right way, and we can get them back playing."
And Dan, you're absolutely right. And I think it's important to know it's actually doing those exercises, those preventative stretches and exercises appropriately the first time. You can get injured just by stretching the wrong way.
Yes.
And then you're trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong, and that's what we want to bring. The Cleveland Clinic, and we are so happy to be part of this community, and we are about the community. It's just not about, for us, the hospital. It's about being out in the community and supporting the community, and we feel like this is a great way for us to not only reach the athletes, but others in the community.
How many years have we been waiting to hear that?
Waiting a long time.
I mean, you don't know how much we appreciate it. I almost want to come back. No, not really. But, no. We got to take pressure off these coaches a little bit, too.
Sure.
Because the last few years, they weren't a trainer, but they were a trainer.
Right.
They couldn't do anything, but they had to observe. Now, they have to be trained on the heat dehydration. Mm-hmm. They have to be trained on the concussions. Now they got to be trained on the COVID. Okay? It's some way that we have to, and I like that word that you use, educate. We have to educate these coaches so they pass it down to educate the kids. Kids have to be educated. And, when we start to talk about the COVID in a few minutes, we'll talk about that. But even with the concussions, there's a whole protocol. But how do we know that protocol is going to be strictly followed unless we had some people like you guys, Mm-hmm. Because you know what that form looks like. Okay? And I mean, most of the time it's done right. Some of the times it's not done right.
The FHSA makes us watch a video. Does that make us an expert? Obviously it doesn't.
No.
And I think more and more coaches are saying, I don't have the experience anymore. I need to have somebody help me make a decision on this, so that you're not putting somebody back in a game. You're not letting them come back 2 days later when their bell's been rung pretty good.
And I think we put a little pressure on the officials too. If somebody gets bell rung, like in a soccer game, coaches really can't see where these players are colliding all over the field. an official sees it, I know Danny and I used to do the same thing. We used to tell the officials, if you see somebody getting hit in the head, tell us, the administrator there, and we're pulling those kids right away, whether they want it or not.
And soccer has more concussions, believe it or not, than football does, because they're all going after the ball at the same time and running into each other. And the statistics are fooling, because you think, well, football, that's where everybody gets a concussion. Maybe wrestling. Soccer is way up.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is that we tend to recognize those major hits that happen, those head-to-head contacts. But it's also repetitive, not such direct hits. But when you're constantly, if you're in a position or in a sport that is constantly getting hit, maybe not your bell rung every time, that does have long-term impacts on your health in the future. So just those things, just to continue to, we think about those lights out type of moments, but it's just that maybe that constant
Wear and tear.
wear and tear. Yeah.
And if you think about it, concussions are fairly new. That they've been really doing the studies on them. I mean, the NFL is probably taking the proper protocol, but
The old days of somebody getting hit and putting them right back in, like they did in the 60s and 70s with professional football. Those days are long gone.
how about the
Long gone.
water breaks, Danny?
That's,
I mean,
that's the other thing.
Yeah.
The
The dehydration. Look at the weather that we're in. Look at the time that we were practicing. You're practicing. It's too bad we don't really have community-based schools that you're right there. You can walk home every day, or you could practice at night without getting rides home. Because if you're playing at night, I'm just talking about football, for example, wouldn't it be easier to practice at night? You don't have to play and practice in that heat,
We just, all the coaches in St. Lucie County just did a wet bulb training, which takes in humidity and temperature and wind direction and sun and a lot of other things. And it's tough in August and September to get a practice in between the thunder and lightning and the humidity. When it's up 100 degrees, you can't practice in a situation like that anymore. And the old coach that said, you screwed up that drill, you're not going to be able to have a water break. Those days are long gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long gone.
And we have, I don't know if you know, Chris, we have lightning detection at systems at every school right now. But again, like for example, today, if that lightning meter goes off, it's 25 minutes. If it goes off during that 25 minutes, it's another 25 minutes. So basically, you're kind of out because we don't have lights to practice.
You can't go in the gym because the volleyball team is in the gym, so you're not getting much of a workout.
It's going to be tough. And, I know as athletic directors, your plate was filled before this happened, reopening sports, starting the fall sports. I know, I talked to a few people that were on the board of directors. I know the FHSA made the decision to start next Monday. A lot of counties can't do it, especially south of us from Palm Beach, Dade, and Broward. But I think a lot of us were shocked. Maybe they know a little more than I do or Danny does. But the medical board kind of said, wait. I know they had this position, let's let them play. And I would have said, yeah, I want them to play, but not yet. Wait a little bit. Start school first. See what happens. Look at what happened just in the last 3 days. You had North Carolina, you had Michigan State, you had Notre Dame. Now tell me they don't have protocol. They're shutting down their in-person classes to have on virtual classes. Okay, now we haven't started yet. We're starting practice same time we're starting school. We don't know what's going to happen. What are your thoughts on this, Chris?
Our position, we're being the healthcare provider. It's about safety. We can't make the decisions on schools opening, but what we are doing there is being there to make sure that people are being safe and taking the precautionary measures. We have brought in our infectious disease specialists to come and educate when necessary on. It's a complicated disease. And when we start talking about contact tracing and who I came in contact, the difference between quarantine and isolation.
Can you explain, first of all, exactly contact tracing?
So what contact tracing is that you've come in contact with somebody who was either presumed having COVID or has been diagnosed with COVID.
Now, how would you do that?
What that is going back and identifying those individuals that you came in contact. It's talking to that individual that was just tested positive and determine where they've come in contact with. So when you're talking in a school environment, again, think about it from a public's standpoint or just a retail place. It's hard to find out who I came in contact with. But now in a school situation, you've got kids in classrooms, you've got kids walking down hallways. To remember who I came in contact with is difficult to do. So most schools, that's, and we're learning that those further down south are delaying their openings. But not everybody is following same suit, so we are just prepared there to continue to educate them. But there's protocols as to how long I have to quarantine, how long I have to stay out, and the difference between isolation. And those are ones that are diagnosed with COVID that you need to stay isolated until you're negative. And then the symptom-based. So there's a lot of, it's complicated to try to manage.
See, I have no doubt that St. Lucie County will do a wonderful job, or the best they can, to taking all the safety precautions. But when we go to athletics, Dan, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know because we haven't had it yet. I mean, let's go
Football.
Football. Let's go football.
We've been exercising,
Okay.
doing some drills, but we really haven't hit yet. Next week you're going to find out when we start hitting contact.
What can happen, Chris, if they hit?
Well, again, they're not going to be masked, obviously, because they're not, from the contact, it's not going to be the issue. The guidelines indicate within 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes that you've been in contact with somebody. Okay. Not being masked, and I'll be honest with you, children are naturally just social beings, right? They're some of us as older adults would like to find our corners and find some quiet time, but that's what they do when they get together. So this is where education and helping the coaches understand when you start seeing teams, and it's not so much when they're playing, okay, it's when they're taking those water breaks.
The timeouts.
The timeouts where they all start huddling together, and that's where you've got to try to manage that separation, and not so much on the fields. This is probably the most important thing.
That's a great
point. It's off the fields. It's making sure if you want to play, and again, they're allowing you, the school's saying, hey, we're going to play. You've got to take those precautions at home. When you go out and you're in public, you put your mask on. Wash your hands frequently. And if you are sick, if you feel symptoms, do not go to practice, because all you're doing is putting those other players and coaches in jeopardy. So it's very important that we do our part. And again, I have 4 children myself. They play baseball and softball, and they're excited to be back out there. But it's important that you don't want to put the other players at risk. And we're seeing that in some of the professional baseball teams, where it's, those acts of, I'm just going to go out for the night, and you put the rest of the team in jeopardy. So
I'm not going to mention any team that's from Cleveland.
No, not at all. We're not going to mention that team at all.
Team from Cleveland.
But I think that's probably the more important message. Is to be vigilant, and especially during play, when you're practicing and during the field, it's easy to get back into your normal operations, especially when you don't have masks on all the time. But where you can have masks, practice that, practice the social distancing, washing your hands, and again, when you're off the field and you're at home, please just be safe and do the right things, same things.
See, and again, we're going back to education. We have to educate these coaches. Mark Cowles, the athletic director at Martin County, we're talking about each sport. And we talked about volleyball. And everybody was thinking, the worst thing with volleyball is the ball, touching the ball. It's not. the recommendations from the medical committee up at the state association was because of the yelling and screaming at a close distance with volleyball.
Yes.
So it's, again, coaches could be creative. You can have those flip cards to call things. You can give hand signals. But the yelling and screaming, I got it, I got it, I got it, that's something in there. Diddy, what are some of the adjustments that the high schools are doing in this area?
I'll work backwards. From last night, we found out that the football officials are not going to handle the football during the game.
Wait, say that again, please.
The officials are not going to physically handle the ball during the game.
So who's going to handle it?
If it goes out of bounds, you have whoever's on that sideline, Port St. Lucie, has to get a kid to throw the ball in to the center. He places the ball, and they go into their huddle. So they're not even going to touch the ball. So that's just going to be a little different, because usually the center comes out of the huddle and he goes up to the line of scrimmage and snaps the ball.
Nobody's going to get that in quick enough if you're in a 2-minute offense, right?
Yeah, that's a whole new meaning.
No, wait a minute. If Centennial's driving against Port St. Lucie and my kid's picking up the ball, boy, we're going to take our time running that ball.
That's just a perfect example of 100 years. That's the way they handled it. The umpire put the ball down and he stepped behind the defensive line of scrimmage. And now they're not going to handle the ball.
Now the young man or woman bringing it in going to have gloves on? Or?
That's what I'm proposing at our place. We're going to give the kids gloves. A JV kid loved to run back and forth on a varsity football field. So that's what we're proposing. I didn't know that rule was coming right
There's
away.
going to be a lot of rules you don't know.
A lot of rules. We're obviously talking about the number of people you could put in the bleachers.
Okay.
Can you have the band? They're playing instruments.
That's tough.
Right. If my brother or my sister comes down to visit and they want to watch a game, can they sit with me? I don't know.
Wow.
We've been 4 months locked up in the house together, so my 12 or 13-year-old brother wants to watch the game. I don't know. So we're talking about inside capacity, I guess you'd say, and outside capacity.
No,
outside.
Chris, definitely inside's tougher than outside.
For sure.
Okay.
But even again on the bleachers, you're sitting. I mean, let's go back to the yelling and screaming, right? There's cheering going on. There's hooting and hollering.
Wow.
And I touch my face, and then I touch the bleachers. It's.
And who's going to monitor the social distancing?
Yeah.
You got enough things to do during the game. That's going to be a tough job. What are you talking about? 20% capacity?
That's what they're talking about. That's kind of a number to start with. Obviously, outside, you got a big crowd. How are you going to tell Johnny's parents that drove to the game that, I'm sorry, you're number 251, we're only letting 250 people in? So, we're going to try to come up with some live streaming and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. Propose the live streaming. Maybe you can get somebody for sponsorship, and you get some, so they can watch it at home and everything.
Still working on the bus.
Wow.
How's it going to be? The distance. You got football players with their equipment on because the use of locker room is going to be limited to 10, 9 and a coach.
But you're playing locally now, right?
So they're going to come dressed,
Okay.
go onto the field. They've cut the halftime of football games down from 17 minutes to 12 because there's not going to be a band performing.
Right.
What are we going to do with the cheerleaders? If they cheer and yell and holler and throw each other up in the air and things, is that going to be acceptable? So there's a lot of ifs, and you work through it, and we haven't even gotten into wrestling. I honestly don't think I see wrestling coming down the pike because
that one's tough.
yeah.
And here's a next question for you, Chris. How about the water? Each athlete will have to have his own water.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So you're talking thousands.
Absolutely. Towels.
Yeah.
Same towels.
You're talking
different.
thousands.
Yes.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm thinking volleyball, for example. You would probably put teams on opposite sides, spread them out. I'm just thinking, I was watching the NBA game before I left, and they set it up pretty well up in Orlando. I mean, where the players are sitting, they're far away from each other, and you made a great point, Chris. They're in that bubble, so they're not going home, okay? So that's why they haven't had any things. But we have somebody, and what would be the situation if a young man comes down with the virus on your team, Danny, and you're playing somebody, comes down with the virus on Monday? Does that mean your game for Friday would be canceled?
I don't know the answer to that right this
I don't think anybody does. I'm just throwing these things out.
You know, I
because it's
don't
gonna
know.
Happen,
I
yeah.
mean, was it with 3 or 4 other kids? Was he with a lot of students?
Yeah.
You know,
And this
if
is-
he's a second stringer and maybe he's not involved, you know, maybe he's kind of sitting on the sideline watching, or is it's the quarterback? He's in the huddle. Maybe he plays defense too.
Yeah, this, and I'll go back. This is new for all of us, and I'll talk about some of the things that you're addressing as this will be new, this will be different. You know, in the hospitals, we're writing the playbook as we're going because this is so different, and just how we're managing visitors and how we're managing cafeterias and you know, just, you know, everything in the hospitals and our outpatient settings. And so I think that's what you're going to, until you start getting into it, you're going to start seeing what things need to change and tweak and
it's
how
gonna
it's
be
going
a
to feel
period of
different. It's
adjustment,
going to be
yeah.
an adjustment
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, we've had very strong collaborative relationships with our Department of Health here in St. Lucie County, and they've really, we've worked together to address some of these issues, and that's what we have to do. And so to answer those questions about, well, what if a player that was visiting comes in and is then tested, you know, how do we manage that? And so this is when we talk about athletics, we're talking about team sports. This is definitely that moment of team sports, and there is not one person that has the answer. You need to bring everybody around that has been working with this. And that's where, again, I appreciate the partnership for us to be coming
What you're
alongside
doing
you
is
guys.
terrific, terrific.
But we would be pulling in the DOH, Department of Health, as well, and saying, hey, let's keep them safe. Let's keep everybody safe. Let's do this the right way.
And I think more than ever, the word team is going to come in. The team with the players have to monitor each other. The coaches have to monitor each other, okay? And like you said, we had that unfortunate case with some of the Indians left the protocol. And what did the team do? Says, you're not coming back.
Absolutely.
The teammates stood up. Told you how this time goes by quick.
It does go by fast.
It goes by quick. But Chris, I can't thank you enough. What you're doing is absolutely wonderful. I have full confidence in St. Lucie County. I know, you know, my son teaching here and all my good friends here. They're gonna start off right on Monday, and hopefully we can find ways of adjusting with athletics. Danny, what time Sunday?
He likes to golf or first thing. It's pitch black, and you hit the ball, you can't find it because he likes to get going before.
Well, that's my kind of golf because I can't find mine anyway. So.
I asked him the other day, which way's the hole? He pointed that way. He goes, the hole is this. Anyhow,
It was a dog leg left. I told him it was a dog leg right.
anyhow, we want to
great.
thank everybody for watching our new episode of Hey Coach, and be safe out there.